Yet another type of disk that we can use is a virtual hard drive, or a VHD. And VHDs, as I said, most commonly associated with virtual machines, perhaps almost too much, because a VHD disk is one that can be used for really any purpose. In fact, if we come up here to disk management, we take a look at action, we can create a virtual hard disk, or a VHD, by just simply providing a location on this computer where the disk would be created. Let's go ahead and create that disk here in the root of C so that we can take a look at how this might actually look. Or better yet, let's even put it here on our desktop. So my VHD. When I create that VHD, I have the option of choosing what the size will be for the VHD. So 20 gigabytes, for example, would be the size of that VHD. When I do so, I can also choose which of the formats I'm looking for. The old VHD format supports virtual disks up to 2 terabytes in size, or the new VHDX format supports disks that are larger than 2 terabytes in size, up to the maximum of 64 terabytes. It also provides additional resiliency should you have a power failure while you're accessing the disk. In most circumstances, if you have the abilities to use VHDX files and you're not attempting to connect to this disk from an operating system that is lower than Windows Server 2012 R2, well then you should generally choose the VHDX format because of these additional features. If, however, you have older versions of the operating systems that may need to connect to the disk, well then you're going to be forced down the path of VHD. Now, when you create a VHDX or VHD disk, you can choose which hard disk type that you want to create. In the old days, the rule was to always create a fixed size VHD because of performance issues. But since then, Microsoft has done some significant investment, particularly in the VHDX format, to reduce the overhead in managing all of the content that exists in that VHDX container. And so these days, when you're using VHDX disks, that overhead is so small that the dynamically expanding virtual hard disk type is the new recommendation when you're using the new format. The best part about a dynamically expanding disk when I create that VHDX file is that creating the VHDX file, as before when we were dealing with VMware Workstation, creates a disk that is not very large, at least to begin. The initial size is only 4 megabytes in size. So this format allows me, if I'm very careful with the storage space and monitoring the size of these disks, to create multiple different virtual hard disks that can be containers for the files and folders that I'm looking for. I can then attach to that VHD by coming back up here to the Actions view and choose to attach to a VHD. I just need to plug in the location of where that disk exists. Now I've already attached to the disk here, so I'm going to get an error message, but I want to show you down here at the bottom that the VHD we just connected to is down here as disk number 6. And I've got to go through the usual tasks in initializing the disk and then creating a partition on the disk, making sure that the partition is what I need, a simple volume as well, and then connecting up to one of the available disk drives. So for example, the Z drive. Let me attach to this, format it as NTFS using a quick format here so that I can show you that once this disk is formatted, this file can effectively become an actual disk that the machine can use. Notice here the connection to the Z drive that if I pop up here is now available for me for the storage of files and folders. The whole notion here of virtual hard disk, again, is most commonly associated with virtual machines, but as you see here, these virtual hard disks provide you a way to encapsulate the files and folders and perhaps databases and other kinds of content into a single disk that you can then carry around with you and move from server to server. This VHD technology kind of provides a bit of storage virtualization, if you will, and is in fact one of the foundations of some of the more modern technologies that we'll talk about here in just a second.